Happy Monday, everybody.
Yo.
Gonna do the Weird Things show here in just a minute. Hey, there I am talking. Hey. Turn this preamp up a little bit. Hey, oh, there I am. Hi, everybody.
What up, everybody? Reading about some photojournalist who was yelled at by Mark Zuckerberg because he took a picture of Zuck cleaning up his dog's poop.
How's everybody's Monday going? Let me know how your Monday's going.
Yeah, how is everybody? Welcome to Weird Things. Andrew Main will not be here today. He continues the 7 trials of Beelzebub.
Yeah, but I do hear that he is
more of just an open brainstorming sesh on just trials in general, and we're really. Last I heard, I got a text from hell that you know there's a lot of positive things, and it turns out Beelzebub's not that bad of a guy. He's just really misguided, and he's got some very two-dimensional ideas on kind of what a trial and puzzle is supposed to be. So he's blocked out another week just to help him, but hopefully we will get him back next week.
Yes, hopefully.
Oh no, he died. We're hoping to make a robot simulacrum of him, but we need your Patreon dollars to do it.
All right, what do we want to do first? We'll do this one. And then Patreon. Oh, I should open up patreon.com. Okay. Yeah, okay. Okay. I think I know what I'm doing here.
Hey, where do you think... Where do you think changing your password lives on Hotmail, which is now Outlook?
Probably under some sort of Microsoft account thing. You have a Hotmail account?
Well, that's the login that I use for Microsoft. Because you have to have the Microsoft thingy.
Yeah, I don't quite know. I would recommend.
I'm going to type in here in the help window, change my
window,
password. Control panel. Ooh, that's an idea.
Timer's going. Ooh. Hit record. There we go. Yes. TVZ Gun asks, are Trump's tariffs on Chinese steel going to affect their space station if it hits the U.S.? We're actually going to talk about that. Well, not the tariff stuff, but we're going to talk about that in the show.
We were talking about tariffs on my channel before, so that might be the follow through.
How are the tariffs good? How are the tariffs today?
Oh, the tariffs of a clown. You're tariffing up my heart when I'm with you, but when we are apart, I feel it too.
Yeah.
Terrifying. Tariff Reed? Is she still alive?
Tariff Reed? I believe so.
Tariff Reed or Freed?
Tariff Reed, of course.
So yeah, she was in Sharknado, right?
Yeah, she was in that first one. I don't know if she was in the sequels. How's that password looking?
Oh, it's about to get changed. Get ready. I just have
Uh-huh.
to know the last version.
Okay. Well,
This is a great time to change a password.
Look, I've wanted to do this for a long time, and now it's happening. Okay. All right, done.
Sunman says he's going to get a job at Sinclair Broadcasting so he can force newsreaders at 200 stations across the country to reenact steamed hams.
You see, I'm assuming you saw Jeff Goldblum's.
I saw that it
was
pops
so
up. I've
good.
not seen it.
It was really good.
It's exactly what you would imagine. It's just
I love
Jeff
that.
Goldbluming his way through Seymour Skinner's lines.
I love that clearly someone used their like press junket time to have him record that.
No, that's basically like what they do now is they'll just like because they get time there. So instead of asking stupid questions that they're not going to get answers to, it's like, hey, can we just have you say something stupid so it can be a viral video?
Yeah. That was really good. Oh, I need to turn the chat on. Whoop. There they are. Very good. Sunman says it was GameStop? No, I thought it was IGN that asked.
No, it was GameStop.
GameSpot. Okay, GameSpot makes sense. GameStop is a retailer.
Oh, yeah.
Hey, Jay. Welcome up. What's up, buddy?
Jay Brushwood just texted me. Change that password, bro.
Yeah?
Jerry.
All done.
Yes?
All done.
Okay.
I'm entirely present, and the last of the things that I needed to be terrified about are over. Because I'm terrified of passwords. They come at you in the night, like fire in space.
Fire in space.
Yeah, fire comes at you. That's why. That's why that Chinese satellite blew it up. Because fire comes at you in space.
Fire comes at you. That's the name of my self-help book.
Fire comes at you in space.
Hey, Justin, can you turn yourself or your signal up to us? So
Did you
that we
turn
can talk
just
over?
everything off?
Up,
'Cause we're
check,
talking-
check,
okay,
check.
yeah,
1,
yeah,
2,
keep
3,
going,
1,
keep
2,
going,
3,
keep
check,
going.
check,
Okay.
check,
I
check.
think
Good.
Yeah. Let's try to keep talking over each other.
Yeah, yes,
So
no,
I'm
maybe
talking
so.
to
Here we go.
Great.
Talking to you.
You're
Hey,
good.
yo.
We're all good. Very good. Thank you very much for doing that.
Ahoy.
Okay.
So I had to explain to my daughters why I have pins that say die with a slash through it. And I was like, oh, well.
Ain't you ever seen Ghostbusters, kid? It means don't die.
Well, yes. And also, she had not seen Ghostbusters, so I had to explain that whole thing. I had to explain about Peter
Is that not a
Venkman's.
thing? Is the
But people
circle
use the circle
cross
slash.
a relic of a bygone era?
No. I think just 5-year-olds don't understand it yet. They've not yet experienced enough of
Oh,
the
I
world
didn't
to
know.
know
I
about
thought
it.
I didn't know which daughter we were
Oh,
talking about.
I thought
Okay.
you said Penny.
No. I said daughter in the ambiguous because I actually couldn't remember if it was Josie or Callie. All right, man. Feeling
Okay.
it. Feeling weird.
Here we
There's
go.
a dark miasma over me. A dork
Yeah,
miasma.
let's miasma our way through it.
Dork sided. All right, here we go. Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to the Weird Things podcast. I'm Bryce Castillo, once again filling in for Andrew Main, joined as always with Brian Brushwood.
Yeah, look, Andrew died, but we're going to build a robot that's going to look exactly like Andrew, and you'll never know whether or not it's actually Andrew or the robot. But
Well, you just told everyone he died.
Well, I mean, he definitely died, but maybe for all you know what?
I mean, died.
We might act as though like, oh, it turns out he wasn't dead, but just know secretly, wink. We don't want to break because otherwise the robot will become malevolent. So when he comes back, it's definitely going to be a robot replicant.
Okay.
Assuming we hit some goals on Patreon. But we're going to act like it's Andrew and we'll deny that he's a robot. But
Yes. But just be
Dot,
aware
dot,
that
dot.
the first time that we make an Andrew robot, it'll probably only last 2 weeks before he goes away
Has to
for
go back to
another
hell, yeah.
month.
Well, for a tune-up, yeah. Wait, look,
That's right.
privately we'll call him 1.0, old 1.0, but
Even though the former Andrew Main was a living organism, was not a robot.
well, yes. I mean,
In fact, this new robot
this
you
is
might call 1.0.
Andrew Replicant 1.0. That we're working. We got the lab.
Sure.
We just need a few
Yeah.
more Patreon dollars. Patreon.com/weird things, guys. Look, we're
Yeah.
sorely
If you
underfunded.
want- If you want, all right. Look, we're all sad that Andrew died, but if you want him back in the form of a very sophisticated robot, then you need to go to patreon.com/weird things.
And
That's
of
right,
course,
because our
that's,
lab, it turns out our lab needs more than 400 and change per month. It's
Yeah.
lab's more expensive than we expected.
Yeah.
Turns out our funding a world-class, fully staffed robotics lab
Pioneering.
costs $400 a week.
Yeah.
Do you know how much it costs to submit to Science and Nature? They charge a lot of money for those papers, and we
Oh
want
my god! And we're like, it's paper. Can we just email it?
Yeah. Like,
Like,
email's
why does
free.
it have to be a thing?
Yeah. Of course, that's Justin Robert Young, and that intro out of the way. How are you doing, Justin?
Email's free. That was my email I sent to them.
Email is, that's it. No.
I send it in 3 emails, 1 word each, just to prove the point.
how unlimited space there is.
But then
They
you
can
realize
do
you
all
sent
it,
them
yeah.
out of order because it takes the first one and drops it at the bottom. So you had to send it 3 more to do the last word first, and then above.
Absolutely. Oh, well, only these eggheads are gonna get the message.
Speaking of robotics, do you guys know about Google's DeepMind AI?
Yeah, of
No.
course. DeepMind was the one that kept waxing that ass at everybody at Go, right?
Mm-hmm. That's right. It also apparently is working on on synthesizing human voice. Well, in a article today on Science Alert, or excuse me, a few days ago at ScienceAlert.com, one of the things that DeepMind does to learn is to play games with itself and with other iterations of itself. I think we talked in the past that DeepMind would learn how to cooperate with other entities because it would know.
It would view
thinks-
other entities as a resource to be harvested.
that everyone comes out ahead when they work together in various games.
Right.
Well, apparently, Google's DeepMind is learning to become highly aggressive now. In games where resources are not abundant. So one of the games that they play is Gathering, in which 2 players gather apples. But in a scenario like the one that we're seeing here, where the supply of apples is limited, the AI will actually fight each other to have more resources
To block
than
them.
the other.
Oh my God! Yeah, we're seeing Team Green here keeps drawing.
So the green are the apples.
Oh,
the
got it.
players are red and blue, and they can shoot lasers at each other to, I guess, stun them or lose apples from their supply. But instead of working together or evenly distributing them, they are actually fighting for control over a limited resource.
So, is this a case in the rules of this game? I have to assume that one of the rules are the more apples you have, the more apples are able to self-replicate, and you're able to create an entire orchard. Like, they haven't figured out the invisible hand of economics yet, right? Where it's like, if we work together, this whole map can be apples instead of us just fighting over the 1 or 2.
I believe it's more simple than that. I think apples is just the MacGuffin for a thing.
Oh, so
to collect.
it's
It is
a finite
all
resource.
it
it's
is all
not
resource
self-replicating.
Correct. Though in another game, Wolfpack, in which there are 3 players, 2 players
Turn your back on the wolf pack. Up in
We're-
a body bag.
where 2 players are wolves and 1 player is the prey. The success condition is not that any one wolf catches the prey, but that one wolf catches the prey when the other wolf is nearby, with the idea being it would simulate an actual wolf taking down prey.
Oh, so
And-
you have to coordinate, not
Like-
only
like-
find,
like a
but
wolf-
also coordinate.
Well, and to protect the carcass after death, so that others can't.
So it's not possible for a lone wolf to take down a kill, or even if a lone wolf did take down a kill, it couldn't be assured of its safety to
Right.
consume it.
Right. I believe that's the lose condition in that game. But basically, it means that DeepMind is getting more sophisticated and aggressive in its ability to understand games, and act very forcefully and proactively against another player.
So, isn't this a phase that humanity has gone through, and some would say has not gotten past, or certainly some segment of humanity is still trapped in this this zero-sum game? Although, quite literally, for all I know, the conditions that they're setting up for these games are that it is a zero-sum game, in which case it would be appropriate to act as though it was a zero-sum game and have a winner and a loser.
I think the idea is to kind of tease out its ever complexifying motivations, right? And to see, like, when in these small stakes examples, when the chips are down, how does it interact both with other versions of itself and just in its own aggressiveness?
Yeah. In the Science Alert article, they posit that you could think of traffic lights. Traffic lights are designed to slow and control traffic, where driverless cars are designed to could potentially be designed to take people through the fastest route at the fastest speed possible, because they would be autonomous and connected to other driverless cars. And those ideas kind of butt up against each other in a world, especially in a world where if it's not all driverless cars, or where traffic lights are not connected to driverless cars.
Yeah, although it does seem like the current batch of driverless cars does a pretty good job of looking at lights and understanding them as the same kind of physical barrier. A red light is just as much a physical barrier as if, you know, a one of those what do you call them? Those concrete pylons was set up there.
Oh, like a little Jersey wall?
Jersey wall, is that what they're called?
Yeah.
Oh, I haven't heard that.
I
Yeah.
think that's what they're called.
But or a road close sign or whatever. Like basically, like, as far as the AI is concerned, a red light is just as much an impenetrable barrier as whatever.
Sure.
Until it figures out that it's not.
On a higher level, if, say, in a world where we have driverless cars and traffic lights are controlled by AI, those could be two entities that have competing goals.
Agendas. Yeah.
Right.
That's interesting.
Well, I mean, they are competing as much as you can programmatically say that they should never compete, right?
So, imagine this. What if?
Although, by the way, we don't need to go into this, but driverless cars taking the fast lane to bad PR over the last month, like, just probably the worst month for autonomous driving PR that we've ever seen.
Well, I heard about the Uber fatality. Was there another one?
Yeah, Tesla, dude, what ran into a concrete barrier.
How much stomach? Let's take a little side journey here. How much stomach do you think the American populace or the world populace has for these unfortunate artifacts of the learning phase? I
would make the argument that we're over the hump. Because we went
from 0 to any, and in general, people are like acceptable losses.
Because the issue is not ban all of them now, right? Like, and part of that is, you know, Uber went out and settled with the family of the woman who died. We'll see exactly how the blame shakes out on that when the government gets done with their investigation. Tesla is cooperating, so we'll see. But in general, there's just not. Maybe we're just distracted with other stuff, but there's not the cultural tinder for the conflagration of ban all these machines is not quite there. We're asking questions of who should be doing it, but nobody is saying these are the devil's carriages. Get them off our streets.
Yeah, and I think it may partially be an issue of where they're being tested. I mean, obviously they'll need real world test scenarios in a variety of locations, and you know, a lot of these are taking place in parts of the country where weather is generally nice and roads are constructed a certain way. But there are a lot of variables to be taken into account. I think about, like, the highway near me is under construction and there are no lines. They're all those little bump dots. And would I feel safe thinking that an autonomous car could do that, could understand that today?
Well,
and I don't know if that's there yet.
So I think that's a valid concern, but I think it's also offset by the fact that per mile driven, even with the imperfect 1.0 version of AI drivers that we have, they're still doing better on fatalities per mile driven than humans are. And I think that's the number one thing that's in our... I think humanity, or the public as a whole, could probably stomach a little bit of early beta stuff, like even slightly worse than regular human drivers. Not much. I think very quickly people will start to freak out, but I think there's a one-time coupon, and right now there's enough goodwill because in general, AI drivers have done better than human drivers. Not by a lot.
Sure.
But enough that...
But there's a confidence level. Like if I'm saying I'm letting my car drive, obviously I'm going to be present and aware of my surroundings as much as I can, especially in the early days. But if the idea is that this thing is going to be safer and I'm giving it, almost total control, I like... Well, and close enough is not good enough now.
This is maybe the frustrating but smart aspect to the way everything's been rolled out has been that it's like, this is not a replacement for you being a driver, right? And like that Uber thing, there when they released the footage of the person up to the frame, getting killed, then they showed the view from inside the car, and we saw somebody who was not doing their job as a driver, who was not paying attention, who was totally dialed out because she was relying on the AI. And given that universally, nobody's saying just relax and let the AIs run thing. Everybody's saying you have to remain engaged and on guard. The moment we see that, yes, on the one hand, it's definitely a tragedy. Yes, the AI failed to recognize the thing, but there's also a human being, and this is all too familiar territory to the tune of 15 9/11s every year in America alone. That we're killing a bunch of people when we let humans in charge. So I wonder if that's the smart threading the needle they're doing, is always keeping a human there. So yes, the computer screwed up, but also we know who ultimately is responsible.
I mean,
well, all right. So there is liability there, obviously, and there is a transference of it. Although there's also I don't know who is going to be signing off on that kind of testing without a human in there anytime soon, right? Like,
right. I agree.
But the big issue is, once something is out there for a little bit, it becomes, we as pattern recognizing creatures assign a trajectory to it. And so it's like, we first heard in general, like my mom probably first heard about a self-driving car 2 years ago, maybe let's say 3 years ago. That's when stuff really started making its way out to the mainstream. And at that point, now, as long as the second after she hears about it, there is not a just carnage in the streets, the pavement painted red with blood from the wild carnage of self-driving cars, then at that point, there is kind of equity. There is like pop culture sort of equity built into things, whether or not it's real or scientifically proven. That is just the tolerance and the understanding that we have for it. And I think that it is... Look, there was going to be somebody killed by an autonomous car. It happened a couple weeks ago. Aside from everything, understanding this is a horrifying tragedy and nobody should have to, lose their life for jaywalking at night. But like in the grand scheme of things, self-driving cars have not, it hasn't become a politician's call to like get them off the streets immediately beyond punishing. I think the governor punished Uber or whatever in Arizona by restricting their ability to do it. But even then, I think that's more political CYA because he was the one that was like the thirst magnet to get them down there when they got chased out of San Francisco. So,
yeah, it'll be interesting to see where all this stuff continues to shake out, especially if you suddenly have multiple types of autonomous cars, multiple manufacturers, multiple different types of AI out on the road, and how well will AI get with each other when they all have their own goals and they can't communicate those goals, or if they can't communicate their goals.
So, the question is what happens when you have two mostly intelligent actors that, for whatever reason, lack the ability to communicate with each other and coordinate? What happens when they start to test the waters about what they can get away with to affect the others? For example, I can imagine in the stoplight thing, this is already something we see with road rage, is you have to socially project, like, I am turning left, my blinker's on and my car's moving, and we're going to play a miniature game of chicken. This is not me asking permission. This is me giving you a warning, and off you turn, and so on. Like, that's already a weird negotiation that we have with adversarial intelligent actors in the form of humans. The question is, how much more insane does it get when those two intelligent actors are using humans as pawns, where a bus is saying, like, I'm not stopping, and I know that this bus clearly is giving no signs of stopping, so you better get out of the way, other intelligent driver of the other car.
I mean, I guess, but that would be something that would happen, in a millisecond, right? Like that these kind of communications, either through direct connection or through the vehicles recognizing signals that they're giving off, would be something that would happen a lot faster. Although what really this conversation has kind of sparked in my mind is the regulation of AIs and the idea that both federally and on a local level, there might be, differences and distinctions of what kind of AI can run your car, what kind of AI you're contracting to run your street lights.
Well, what you're really talking about is AIs are going to develop personalities and reputations, like because right now you got BMW, you got Tesla, you got Uber. All of them are writing all of their code independently. They're not working together on a unified framework. So as a result, they're gonna drive differently. Where it's just like some company is going to get a reputation for, like, they're going to have to ban the Freddy Driver.ai program. It's like, sorry, Freddy Driver takes too many risks. He takes advantage of other AI's safety protocols. Yes, it does result in getting you faster from point A to point B, but it's unacceptable, the risk that it poses to everybody around.
Well, but I would suspect that that's probably a decision that gets made federally, right? Like that there is
which only makes it more interesting, because different countries will have different we're okay with Freddy AI.
And then imagine, you take the drivers out of NASCAR and you're racing AI, against each other, right?
Oh my God, that would be an epic show. I would get really interested in NASCAR if it was the equivalent of watching two AIs play chess at 200 miles an hour.
Number one, you could probably take those speeds up even higher if, or you look at something like F1. I mean, remember, electric motors are by and large so powerful that the drivetrains can't handle them. Like, an electric motor can go faster than the equipment that we currently mass produce for vehicles can
handle.
Yeah.
I forget. I think it was for G4, and we were still doing the G4 show, that I went out to some like random ass track in like about an hour and a half north of where I was in Florida at the time to watch the possible record breaking of like the fastest run of a electric motorcycle. And it wound up not happening just because they kept ripping the drivetrain. Like they would
just sheared it right off. Basically, imagine the engine pulling so fast that everything strips and it just falls apart.
Yeah. Yeah, and so they had to. It wasn't catastrophic the first two times they did it, and then the third time it totally screwed the bike, so they couldn't run it again. But that was like, look, these electric motors, you can go fast, and you could probably do some crazy stuff in F1 or in NASCAR if you didn't have to worry about when the gigantic fireball engulfs the car, that you're worried about the driver inside.
Puck in the chat has a suggestion. What about AI demolition derby?
I'd be down with that. There's certainly a lot more chaos in that, and it'd be more interesting to, because right now you're just watching a bunch of people moving on basically gut instinct, but knowing that everything is a calculated move,
when you have
really
360-degree vision on every entity
exactly,
around
and
you.
nothing is done by accident. Oh, what game is he playing? Like, to ascribe intentionality, that's fantastic. That would be really interesting.
I would prefer NASCAR for AI over Demolition Derby, just because I think the fun of watching an AI is what happens on like the subtleties, like the little things. Whereas I think Demolition Derby, I would almost rather a remote control Demolition Derby where it's like, okay, well, what happens when you have the top down view of this like smash kind of thing. Although, who knows? I don't know. I'm sure they'd both be rad. I want to see all of them.
I think of the three that we've talked about so far, I think I'd be interested in seeing what they do with F1, because F1 has a variety of different race course layouts.
Right.
And if you had an AI that didn't have the ability to plan or had to play it by ear, I think that would be really interesting.
Well, and plus there's so many moving parts. What if an AI controlled all of it? This symphony of making repairs. Like, I would love to see, I don't know, insane, innovative solutions, including, repairs mid. I don't know how everything works as far as teams or whatever, but I can imagine stuff that is technologically not possible now, like in the middle of a race, having a teammate competitor drive up next to you, dock and repair you as you're in transit, and then keep on going, or something like stuff that we cannot even consider now with humans, but could be wonderful and exciting and insane when AIs are running the show.
I mean, I guess that the question is, with AI for any of these ideas that we're throwing out there, it's faster, and the possibility for catastrophic wreckage would be higher because we could remove the person.
I mean, in many ways, isn't this what we enjoy so much about the development of SpaceX's relanding its rockets technology, where it's like we never know. Like, it feels like every time it might be a NASCAR crash, but if it works, then hooray, humanity itself has progressed and is doing better. Like, to be able to see that with your own eyes every Sunday at the F1 track or whatever would be amazing.
I'm going back. I'm jumping back to where we were, but I'd love to see a Demolition Derby over time that's all AIs, and they end up having to stop the races because they won't hit each other.
Because they've all figured out
going around each other. Yeah.
Yeah. They're just doing the weave in and out. V Grade Tech says, I don't know if I like the idea of awesome AI races because the excitement will likely become normal very quickly. If they were rare enough, I'd love it. I don't know, man. Like, I'm sure that's been something that's been said about auto racing from the very beginning.
I mean, it was said about
once you get the faster cars, and once you get the roll cages, and once you get the, it's like, no, it's we like to see crazy things go fast, and things to win and things to lose. All sports is a random number generator with different skins.
Yeah, well, and I'm sure they were saying that about gladiatorial combat until somebody had the brilliant idea of, like, no, let's bring a lion in. And it's like, whoa, okay, right on.
The classic turning point in the history.
The question is, if you are, I mean, because there is in sports culture, the question of, like, who's an athlete and who's not. If you are able to be replaced by an AI, does that make you more or less of an athlete? So if theoretically the best driver in the history of NASCAR could be replaced with an AI. You can get somebody that could probably run races more efficiently at some point soon, probably, that could run races more efficiently than the best racers in NASCAR history.
But I think part of athleticism and just sport in general is about the human body's capability. So I'm sure
the kinesthetic side of things.
Yeah, like, I think robots could, especially if there are humanoid robots. I mean, you could make a soccer team out of Boston Dynamics robots, and that would also be real fun. But I think the human element makes it intrinsically.
I don't know
sporting.
how long we'll be married to that being our favorite part of it. I used to be somebody who would really get upset where it's like, is chess a sport? And I'd be like, yes, it is a sport, because the heart of chess is competition and the heart of sport is competition. But over the years I've softened, and I now feel like, there's an athleticism or a kinesthetic. It's both an intelligence and a kinesthetic, and there's some weird fusion of the two that makes us dig sports the most. But, like, right now we sing the praises of a head coach, for a college football team, even though he's not doing any push-ups or bench presses or whatever. He's just showing up, saying words, pointing, and then people do their best to follow his lead. Will we feel like those coaches are any less impressive when they're commanding a robot army to destroy each other?
Yeah. I think that element you certainly seen, and you've already kind of seen in sports, the idea, the glorification, or even the knowledge of front offices, because we are so dialed into fantasy sports and stuff like that now we value the person that can sign the good contract more than we ever have before. But that's not an athlete. An athlete is the person doing the thing, and I do wonder where that transference happens. Like, do the kids hang up a poster of an AI? I would suspect you would.
I mean, if you brand it appropriately and you tell the story of the team that created it, where it's like, hey, this is Princeton's AI. And this is the Princeton team that made it. This is the body they've created. This shin was created by, Larry, and it's the best shin in the business. I can see us all projecting a personality, an aspirational list of hopes and dreams. Like, oh, I want to go to Princeton someday. My uncle went to Princeton. I'm a Princeton guy. I like Larry, the Princeton AI. I don't know. I feel like we can. I think we already do anthropomorphize characters from virtual games, video games and so on. And I don't see why those things being made more flesh would reduce our affection for these fictitious ideas.
I would make you go one forward and say that we won't hear about the Princeton team. If you want to hear about the Princeton team, you'll be able to read about it. But we are going to read about Larry, and we're going to read about how Larry has been fed the aggressiveness of Mario Andretti and the,
Yes. Well, and I wonder if we're already dealing with the primordial versions of these in that, like, do you have a favorite? Do you like the Amazon Echo word over Siri? Like, do you have a favorite of those two personalities? Because they're diverging. They're starting to become substantially different and having different quirks, different sense of humors. Telling better or worse jokes, understanding one of you better or the other.
Yeah, I mean that's a real thing as these companies that are using artificial intelligence and voice synthesis. We just talked about DeepMind is learning its own human voice synthesis. So a branding element is going to be a part of integrating these technologies into everyday life. What you have on your phone, the thing that you have with you 24 hours a day.
Yeah.
And the name of the little buddy that lives inside of it is, even if you don't use it, you're going to know that that's what you got.
Greyfire says, how long until we get real steel robot boxing? It's not that I think that is never going to happen, but I do think that the stuff that is probably within 5 years, I mean, like, we're probably within, literally all Elon Musk has to do is just, get drunk with another billionaire and they can AI race 2 Teslas, right? Like, you could probably make it a hyper aggressive version of passing and put them on a track and see them run. Like, that can happen now if there was time, effort, inclination, and money around doing AI racing. I mean, hell, I think there's absolutely something for that.
Yeah, I mean, what was that robot show that they just brought back? They revived
BattleBots.
BattleBots. Yeah, I mean, that is a show that has come back. I don't know if they're still doing it. I guess so.
Yeah, I don't know how. I mean, but then again,
that's a first step.
Yeah, I mean, and the next level for that is nobody touches the controls, because that's where that is like, all right, let's build these remote controlled death machines, and now there's the human element of like, you went for the sawn, you should have went for the flip. Like, why didn't you shoot the flames? Whereas, the idea would be, okay, well, the AI gets to do it. But then again, the AI would have to be aesthetically pleasing. And right now, the AI doesn't necessarily know what aesthetically pleasing is.
That'll be interesting. Think about the next generation. So it's like this becomes a sport, and we start to celebrate the AIs for what they can do. Then they start realizing there is a benefit, a financial benefit, to increase your sponsors, to increase the popularity of your character over another if they're better at doing the interview afterwards. So imagine where AIs have to negotiate the same gambit that or gauntlet that professional basketball players have to play, where they have to go put out heart and soul and work really, really hard with the goal of winning a game, and then afterwards play another game called preserving their career, making sure they remain relevant, pleasing their sponsors, trying to tell interesting takes on why they ended up where it is. I could see all of this happening, and us loving and hating certain AIs as a result.
Yeah. You know, I have another twist on this that we'll get to on the other side of this Patreon plug, but let's do that Patreon plug. Hey, patreon.com/weird things. As we mentioned before, Andrew Main is going to be recreated as a robot. He got a little worked up.
He got a case of the deads.
Listen, we told you last week that he was competing in the 7 Trials of Beelzebub, and that's true. That's taking a little bit longer than he would have liked to, and we don't know how long he's going to be in hell. So what we're going to do is recreate through a simulacrum of technological efficiency, Andrew Main for you, but you need to keep our funding. We're reapplying for your funding to our lab. So please go ahead and give us money. Patreon.com/weird things. Not just for us, man. You go ahead and get After Things, the show we do after Weird Things, earlier than anybody else when you copy that exclusive audio RSS link.
That's right.
Yeah,
And
that REO,
the REO Speedwagon.
The REO Speedwagon. Just listen to it. It's great.
Every month we put new REO Speedwagon songs on that feed. And if we hit $600 on the Patreon, we're going to go back and chunk out all of the Journey quests that we've done up to this point as its separate feed. So if you just want to go back and listen through the Journey quest, you'll be able to do that at patreon.com/weirdthings.
Yeah.
So I talked about this on, I think it was Current Geek a little while ago, but I've been really fascinated about AI creativity. We've seen neural networks. It's a big thing on Twitter. You know, we fed a neural network all these scripts and we had it write a new script of Seinfeld or a new Arrested Development episode.
Dude, I will stake my online reputation on the fact that Harry Potter book that was created is better than all the other Harry Potter books.
So this is a researcher named Robbie Barra who has posted some imagery of these paintings. Apparently he's taught an AI to create nude-esque paintings.
Go back. This one's titled Donald Trump Mounts a Horse.
Oh, Jesus. But you see
the inner ear.
It has like the curves and the colors and the tone and textures of a nude painting, but not quite the form.
Yeah, that's probably the closest one, and it looks like it has a carrots growing out of its
armpit.
Yeah.
There's also.
That's how you know that you've really become a man, when you find your first armpit carrot.
But he's also got an image here of an AI generating landscape paintings.
Wow!
And so if you've ever seen the images where it looks like it's merging through different celebrity faces, it's doing that, but with landscape paintings. So if we can just like kind of stop it at almost any point, and you can find something in all of these.
Each of them, no matter where you pause it, I can see it as an abstract landscape.
Yeah, and some of them are more abstract than others, but
I would say there's probably a few frames that you could still on and be like, oh my god, these are trees and grass and sky, like everything that normally goes into a landscape. That's insane. That's amazing. The idea of art and aesthetics is just, it is a fascinating field, because on one hand, specifically people who know design and no art and no layout will say like, no, like this is a learned skill for which I am always going to be best at knowing a human sensibility for, because I am a human, and beyond rudimentary mechanical things, there is an aesthetic that I will always have that a computer will not. And then you look at stuff like that and you're like, I don't know, dog.
Well, and with AI and these neural networks, they're basing their results on past data and successes. So like the idea of like YouTube's algorithm is a black box where it just tests stuff and sees what's successful and creates ideas and out of that. And with art, it's difficult. Or I would imagine it would be difficult because if you were just taking past data, you would be able to pretty decently replicate a certain style or a certain look. But when you add in the idea of a black box where it can break the rules and try new things, I think that is a barrier that I previously would have assumed would only be human territory, to break rules and try new things. But I think it's also difficult to tell a neural network, oh, this is successful, this is not successful, or how to quantify that. You know,
I mean, until you get into, let's say an efficient network or an efficient communication of value space, like imagine like an Etsy market where AIs just start creating all kinds of different mock-ups of things, and then they're able to see, okay, this is playing, this does not play, this is popular, this is unpopular.
Oh, so like success via commercialism.
Correct. Like even if the whole thing was a joke and people are like, I want to buy this, or I pinned this, or whatever. Okay. Like now, then suddenly it has raw and statistically significant feedback of what is, quote, good. Because here's the other thing.
Yeah.
We still don't know what's good. You know, is the Phantom Menace good because it's one of the best-selling ticketed movies of all time, or is it bad because it's so popular? Or
sure,
we don't know about ourselves about that. It'll be even more interesting as we start arguing, you know, as far as what limits to set up on an AI.
But isn't that really the question? That we as humans will know more about what we ignore, and therefore what we value. It is the shadows that shape the image, right? And so the question for the AI is not, can you do something better than a human? Of course. It is, what is acceptable? What is too highbrow? What is beyond where our current frequency of like, okay, well, this is something that I value. This is art.
Well, and I love the idea of an AI exploring, because there's different elements. Like, for example, transgression is an element of a lot of modern art. You know, you get something like the piece of work Piss Christ, where they took a crucifix and put it in a jar of urine. Like, that was not mechanically.
That's what it meant.
That was not mechanically a very challenging thing to do, but it was extremely
well, and it was a photograph. So if you look at it, you don't immediately know, or if you did not know the title, you would think, oh, that's a photograph of the crucifix.
Sure, right, and
there's context to it.
Exactly.
Wait, that was just a picture. They had the jar, right? Didn't they?
Well, they physically made it, and then they took a picture of it.
The photograph, it was.
No, but the jar was never on display. It was just a picture.
I don't believe so.
Well, I thought it was, but even if it wasn't, like I
remember seeing a picture of a jar of. I mean, like, who knows what was, if it was. I don't know if anybody tested the piss.
But here's the thing: is that the art in that piece was the transgressive nature. It was an assessment of culture and a question of what could be gotten away with that would be controversial, and yet. They exactly nail that dividing line between two countercultural elements with each other, and I would love to see AIs throw darts at the dartboard on that to see what they come up with.
So another part of this is, I think, musicianship. We've already seen where, you know, machines can synthesize human voice or just not human voice, inhuman voice. And those are used like Hatsune Miku and other Vocaloid technology where people can plug in what they would like the robot to sing, and it sings it, right? But I think that the mechanisms that go into making music, which are generally very open and very interworkable, I think that in the next I think we could start to see more neural network creativity go into that space as well. Whether it's, I had a neural network write lyrics and I edited them, or I let it write all the lyrics and I kept refreshing until I found the one that I liked. I let it write a melody that the melody for the song. Oh, well, it knew the melody, so it also knew this was a good bass track. This is a good drum pattern. To the point where I think in a few years you could assemble, at least with duct tape, a device that spits out a fully formed song.
I think we're already there, but what's changed is the consumer. So what we forget is that there's two sides to the equation. There is the producer of all these works, but they're doing it to satisfy the consumer. And the consumer, being by definition only humans, has ever-shifting landscapes and tastes that are based on familiarity heuristics and what they've seen before. If you see it, like we all have an inherent reaction to the Comic Sans font. The Comic Sans font is not substantially different from any other font, except for we as consumers have associated it with lazy typography, lazy work. We've seen our grandmother use it, blah, 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 blah. And that baggage is a constantly shifting landscape. So I feel like certainly you can make sonorous sounds using an AI, but will the marketplace dig it? And the answer is no, because there was a time, you look back in the late 90s, some of what was seen to be cutting edge digital art. And it's now you look at it and you're like, oh, so you ran 3 Photoshop filters over it. And it's you are an educated consumer of art now. And as a result, the mere technical execution of stuff is no longer impressive. Now you look for well, what does this mean culturally? And I feel like that is only going to continue, and we're going to seek ever more nuanced and specific aspects of our art. I don't know if that went off the rails.
So you're saying that would prevent let's just set the goal at a pop song, a top 100 pop song completely created by AI. That is less possible because we are more technologically literate.
Correct. Or to our audience, because that's the thing is let's say we took a AI bot that made pop songs and we took it and we sent the song back to the 1950s, and nobody knew that it was an AI singing. Nobody knew it was robot controlled. All they knew is that it had a rockin' beat that was specifically selected to appeal to mid-50s sentimentality of, because there are certain elements that hadn't come out yet that were too novel, and other things that were too familiar. And so we could program it okay, look, throw in a rock and swing beat, do this, throw this bridge in there, make 3 coy references to I don't know, anti-war whatever, and go. So we'll say it's in the mid 60s.
Sure.
And that could land.
Look to me for the changes and try to keep up.
Exactly, right? But I feel like to do it again today, the only way to do it is to have an accurate map of the cultural gestalt. We have the benefit of hindsight in the 1960s of knowing what worked and why, so we can have an AI combine all those elements and plug in something that probably would be a hit in the 1960s. But because by definition, we don't have an efficient market of what our cultural gestalt is, because after all, whoever knows it the most is the one who would release the thing and make it most popular. But instead, we're all competing, and AI will be tools in that regard. But I feel like the moment an AI cracks it, instantly everybody will be over whatever it is the AI cracked, and then we'll be looking for something else.
Well, I don't know. I guess I don't know how to respond to that. I disagree. I think it's very possible, and I think it's something that would happen very slowly. Whether it's partially neural network assisted, partially neural network written, and I think the lyrical aspects are only one thing. But man, I'm not so cynical about it.
And by the way, for those of you listening who are not aware, Bryce is one of the John Henrys that would be put out of business by this inky poo of specifically even like electronic music or that does not have a ton of lyrics, sure. And oftentimes have lyrics that are very shrouded in vocal effects and stuff like that. So you wouldn't even necessarily have to have it sound exactly like a human voice. I would tell you what, number one, music in general happens in big bangs. It's like nobody knows that this is going to be a thing that really takes off until all of a sudden it's gigantic, right? Like it just, there are flashpoints that explode. I would not be shocked if in the next 5 years we have a fully AI music sensation that has some kind of super catchy song that now it becomes the new thing, that it is novel. People understand it. They would find it cool or transgressive to take your point with art that like, yeah, no art. My parents are really upset because like all there's one thing that universally parents of all stripes, no matter what kind of music they like, country, rap, rock, gosh darn it, there were songwriters in my day, not these computer things and the kids who all they want to do is jam whatever they can up their parents' butt. Just be like, no, I think computers are the best. They write the best songs. Boo hoo, the Beatles, I love you. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Like those were great lyrics.
I mean, I think that just to clarify my thesis, and I'm not committed to this thesis, but I feel like there's no such thing as the best song, but there is such a thing as the best song for any particular time. And it's a combination both of execution of what is generally agreed upon, aesthetically pleasing musical stuff, and also an accurate reading of the cultural gestalt that helps to define a hit.
Sure. I think I think like no part of this process makes it something that there isn't a human involved, right? Like even if you have the AI write something, maybe someone sings it. If even in a world where an AI creates the entire front to back musical file, someone has to upload it and decide if it's even good, right? There are still gatekeepers who will
Sure, like let's say the song exists, but it exists in a vacuum. Yes. You need a human to market it, and then let's say, okay, what if an AI is a good marketer? It's like, well, great. Well, then you need humans to be the ones that are the brand influencers that recommend it and share it and talk about it.
Or you're just gonna need someone to hit the refresh button until the good song comes out.
Well, or let's say that it's the would you rather bot, right? And it's just pumping out stuff, and some of it's poop and some of it's good, but there is an investment by their careers of those that follow it that are like, maybe there's some threshold that either we know or we don't know that when it gets 100 retweets or 1,000 likes or something like that we are going to gauge that as the social proof. It will then automatically go through CD Baby to post it on iTunes, or it will then buy out of its, maybe it makes money in some different way, but then it'll tap into that to buy advertising for itself, and it will generate its own art for each thing based on its fans. Are the fans into this song? Yes or no?
Yeah.
Boom. And now that's the gatekeeper. Like all these things can happen now. Like these are available tools, providing that the AI can make some kind of, let's just say for sake of argument, like electronic music.
I think where I'm coming from is that it's a matter of time, right? Like there's a reason it hasn't happened yet is because neural networks are still becoming easier and easier to make. They still have to plug into all these various bits of data, bits of metadata, creation tools, and the thing that will hold it back is the human beings along the way who can still outclass those networks, right? If you have a neural network that is, making a rock song or trying to write a rock song, well, that has to compete musically with all rock songs that are coming out now and vying for attention. Similarly with
all 5 of them, all 5 rock songs.
But even like advertising or deciding whether something's good, if an AI says this is the good song, well, there's an entire industry of music executives whose job is to also know what the good music is.
Yeah. What are the hits? But also, how much of that is a human construct? Like that we want to make sure that our hits count and our misses don't, because we view our output a certain way. That like, all right, well, I'm only going to be alive for X amount of years. Statistically, this is when the most amount of people will find my kind of work appealing. So I want to make sure that I don't put out a bunch of stinkers, and the things that are good, I want people to pay a lot of attention to. I mean, this is the stuff that we deal with all the time in any kind of creative outlet, is our own self-limiter. If you were a robot and you didn't care about mortality, right?
Or legacy, or being known for your 10,000 failures as long as you get 7 hits.
Like what happens then? Like what happens when it's just an Instagram account that's posting whatever the minute limit of a vocal is, or a song plus a visualization? And
I mean, to be honest, I think that AIs start to act like a lot of humans. So it's like you've got an AI bot that runs an Instagram account, but then you have another AI bot that doesn't want to spend all the resources that the first AI bot does. So it just reposts. It steals. It freejacks the other freebooted. Is it Freejack? Yeah, Freejack was a movie with the guy from the Rolling Stones. But the point is,
yeah,
Mick Jagger, that's his name. I can access names.
What is this movie? I don't know this movie. Bro.
Oh, no, Freejack? You never saw Freejack?
I did not see Freejack.
Yeah. But I guess my point is, I think we see a lot of structures that we already see that will seem awfully familiar with artists stealing other artists' work. And then when it's come under fire, that artificially intelligent artist coming up with a justification for why it did what it did and why it should be allowed to continue to do it.
That's a really interesting point, right? Like musical plagiarism is a thing. And
wow, that's fascinating, because there have been these court cases recently, where the line of what is an influence and what is legally something that you could sue for is getting kind of dangerously wobbly, as you saw with Marvin Gaye's estate and
Pharrell.
Pharrell and the younger Thicke, Robin Thicke.
The younger Thicke. That should have been his name that he toured under.
Thicke the Younger. But yeah, that's fascinating. What happens when you can demonstrably prove, like, no, or is it more damning that an AI is programmatically taking everything apart to put it back together, if it then the synthesis of which is something that sounds...
Can you imagine, like this is a non-zero possibility in the future that an AI will have to take to the stand and explain that all music is all derivative, and give a little speech on how nothing is new under the sun,
and everyone slow claps and the credits fade.
Yeah, I mean, that's a real thing.
Well, that's the fascinating thing about the Robin Thicke case, is that it's not like the sheet music is the same, which is where you've seen stuff in the past. Like there was the who was it? Sam Smith and Perry, Tom Petty and Sam Smith, where he basically proved there's like this whole industry of people who work at labels that will listen to music and be like, and know musically, you want to know what this sounds like blank, and then they'll have to go back and review it to see whether or not it legally is kind of up there. And then all of a sudden, Tom Petty just gets a call and is like, "Hey, congratulations! Now you're a co-songwriter on this top 40 track. And Tom Petty's like, cool. That's great.
That was that thing with that Taylor Swift song too. They
Oh yeah, Right Said Fred.
Yeah.
Right Said Fred was the co-writer on the newer Taylor Swift single because Look What You Made Me Do sounded too much musically like I'm too sexy for my shirt.
Yeah. Okay, we got one last story. We can burn this real quick and then do some picks. You guys probably have heard in the news about China's Tiangong-1.
Yeah, which fell
Dude,
to
Tiangong-1 fever, man, just gripping the nation.
Well, it was like a lottery that any of us could lose. Like they were like, "Where's it gonna land?" They're like, "Great question. How about planet Earth? Somewhere. Maybe you."
And that was because
hold on, wait. Can we just pause that Brian's phrasing of a lottery any of us could lose is the most perfect description of life itself.
Well, it was a big deal because I believe it malfunctioned or it hit its end of life and had no system to control its descent.
Okay,
back
for those
on Earth.
of you who don't know what we're talking about, there's a satellite that crashed back down to Earth.
Yes,
That's what Tiangong-1 is.
Yeah, it is one of China's high-profile satellites. It crashed back down to Earth, and because
it was a space station, right? Not just a satellite. They sent up crews to it.
Oh yeah,
to live up there for a little bit.
And it ceased functioning in 2016, and it finally made its way back into orbit. Did you guys actually know where it landed?
I think I read that it broke up over the Pacific Ocean somewhere.
Yeah, usually safe bet is ocean for everything, right?
So the parts that didn't burn up, a lot of it did burn up because it didn't have a heat shield. Actually landed in an unpopulated area of Western Australia.
Oh man, so it did hit. I mean, like, what are the odds of that?
Pretty low, especially because it's pretty close, or it's sort of close to where they would have liked it. So we talk about space junk and coming back and having a controlled return to Earth. But do you guys know about Point Nemo?
Yes. Point Nemo is the direct-to-DV spinoff that in which Nemo robbed banks and had a adrenaline rush fetish.
Yeah?
Yeah, he used to jump. They called it deep diving, not skydiving.
This is the little clownfish boy?
Yes. Well, I mean, he's older. He's a teenager at this point, and he's so they have to send in another fish named Keanu to be cool and try to impress Nemo.
I am an FBI agent, and the F stands for fish.
So Point Nemo is one of the furthest. It's a spot in the ocean, the
Southern Hemisphere. It looks like.
Yeah, that's right. That is the furthest away from landfall on the planet.
Oh, so it's like generally considered safe.
That is where typically space agencies try to have objects return to Earth because it is so far away from landfall. But that also means that there is just a bunch of a bunch of retired technology and spacecraft under the ocean somewhere.
Oh my God! So that would be like how is James Cameron not there right now? James Cameron needs to get down there immediately and just be looking through He's only not down there because he's run out of movies he can name these documentaries after.
Well, and it would be tough to go because the like for example the Tiangong-1, which fell down, when it breaks apart and the objects return to Earth, if you took an oval shape of the footprint of where that debris could land, it would be 995 miles long and a few dozen miles wide. So this is many tiny pieces spread over a huge portion of the ocean.
I'll tell you what, nothing about this sounds like anything any humans would get involved with. But once we get in the world of AIs and menial tasks, like AI don't mind spending 30 years combing the floor, looking for all the pieces, assembling them all. You throw it together, have it run on a nuclear cell, and just runs forever on its own. We're eventually going to capture everything.
And return that technology back to...
Well, I mean, or at least to preserve it. It belongs in a museum.
Make a little fort, like a little fort in there, and then make a little tiki bar, and you can run it and dispense life advice to visiting celebrity guests. Be a hell of a YouTube channel.
But that's an interesting element of this satellite return story, is that there is a place that we have a junk pile. We have a space junk pile in the ocean, and it's been accepted that that's it. That's where we try. I mean, it makes sense.
I wonder how effective that is at preserving everything. Like, I wonder if
I would suspect it's the opposite, right?
I don't know.
Water and
well, it would be technology that would be. I mean,
there's
made for space pressure, but not necessarily underwater pressure.
Right, but
it would be military grade.
Like for example, the stuff that was inside the pyramids that was extraordinarily well preserved. They opened up the doors, and all of a sudden, everything started disintegrating instantly because they had a tightly controlled, rigid environment in there where there wasn't a lot of biological or energy or sun, or airflow or whatever.
Right.
I would imagine.
Yes.
I would imagine that salt rusting things notwithstanding, you might have a similar situation at the bottom of the ocean at Point Nemo, where it might be like, yeah, it's not perfect, but nothing is changing, and as a result, the stuff that's preserving stays preserved. I don't know.
Yeah, it would be interesting to see.
Somebody write in and tell us whether or not these things would be preserved down there, because I'm curious. I would like to know.
I mean, certainly all the plastic bits won't get corroded, and
no, they won't. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's true. I wonder if pressure isn't.
The pressure and just all that.
And you ain't got fish poking on it. You ain't got coral reefs growing on it.
So that's Point Nemo. There you go.
Best sequel.
Do you guys have picks? You guys want to do picks?
And do I have picks?
Which pick?
All right, I got picks on picks on picks. What do you want to? You want an indie movie? You want a TV show I watched? You want me to talk about American Idol? Because I watched all. I actually was out of town, man. I did jackass all weekend.
All right, give me the most intellectual of your picks.
The Death of Stalin is a movie that is in independent theaters now. It was released in the UK a little earlier this year. Directed by Armando Iannucci. You will know him from his work in the UK with In the Thick of It, and here in the United States, Veep. He kind of specializes in these very talky, funny, black comedy political dramas, and this is no different, except for the fact that it's about the death and power vacuum created by Stalin in Russia. So Steve Buscemi plays Khrushchev, and Jeffrey Tambor plays the immediate Secretary General who steps up in like the immediate aftermath. The family of Stalin comes into play, but it's a lot of basically it's all these British actors that you know from watching like Doctor Who or Luther or anything. You just realize that there's like only 50 actors in England, and you've seen them in every one of these high profile British shows. It was funny. The only thing that's different is that part of, I think, his charm in other shows are the kind of relative low stakes of politics that people are getting very angry about, like when a press conference is going to be or where somebody's sitting because there's vanity involved. And you certainly get a lot of that here, but a lot of the background is like who's on the death list and if when Stalin dies, whose death list is going to be the new death list, or are they going to cancel the death list? And like torture and murder is kind of sort of out there, sort of offhand, and it definitely is a lot darker than his other stuff because of the subject matter. So it's a bit of a different thing, but I enjoyed it.
Very cool.
Man, I'm like you, Justin. This has been a stellar week for me as far as consuming new stuff. I got books and video games and movies and TV shows. What do you want? What do you want?
Give me TV show. What have you been doing TV show wise?
I guess it will be. I guess I said
Counterpart
TV show.
finale?
What's that?
Counterpart finale? Or...
Well, yeah, that's. I haven't watched it yet. I have to watch it before Cord Killers. But in that category, let me throw this one at you. Have you watched the Zen Diaries of Gary Shandling?
Damn it! You stole my thing.
Oh no!
Yes,
Really?
This is fantastic.
Yeah, no, I'm halfway through the second part of it right now.
So, the Zen Diaries of Gary Shandling is a 4.5-hour documentary from a close friend of Gary Shandling, Judd Apatow.
Wow.
And student of like
Yeah.
you know, he was a junior joke writer and then started directing episodes of Larry Sanders Show, and man, he had access upon access.
Yeah.
And you're looking at bizarre little clips of him just starting off in stand up, being bad, and where it goes, and also all of his journals and libraries of stuff that he wrote.
Yeah, it's great, and it is long, but it really documents his life with a lot of space. Right, you get his early life and the trauma from his childhood to being just dipping his toes into comedy and being pushed by George Carlin to explore it, and then the success of the Larry Sanders, or not even Larry, it's Gary Shandling show, and then the Larry Sanders show, and everything that happened.
They really
after
make that transformation. The first half, and I haven't finished the second half yet, but the first half, you know, sort of talks about some of the very counterintuitive decisions he made, and for whatever reason, his neurosis, you know, prevented him from completing a lot of stuff. Like he and Jay Leno both co-owned the spot of permanent guest host on the Tonight Show, and at some point he bowed out. You're like, yeah, I just can't give this the attention it deserves. And he did the Gary Shandling show, and then that melted down because he was like, I can't give this the attention it deserves. And then his marriage, he decides to marry a girl, and they're like, well, as soon as the house is in, we'll get married and we'll move in and have happily ever after. So he makes sure that the house never gets finished, just constantly making changes to it.
Yeah.
And then there seems to be this pivotal moment where the Larry Sanders show, this sort of symphonic fusion of everything that we've learned about Gary Shandling up until this moment, where it plays to all of his strengths, starts to come out. And I haven't gotten past the Larry Sanders era.
Oh, okay.
But it's fascinating stuff.
And it follows his life after that, pretty much up until his sudden death in 2016, I believe. It's really great, and it you know, I think the title is actually really right on. Like, there is something zen about seeing his writings on creativity and how to approach life, and how
knowing
to
that
be okay with yourself and the things that you do, and stepping away when it feels right.
I'm so excited to watch it, because Shandling was somebody that not only in stand up, but again, like the Larry Sanders show, if you have not watched, and God, they need to just, someone just needs to have, where can I watch the Larry Sanders show?
It's on HBO.
So now it is, but it's hopped around a lot. Like, it used to be on Netflix because it was
right.
before HBO owned all of their programming.
Yeah, no,
So
it's back on HBO.
But now I assume with the documentary, they want you to be able to watch everything that you can as well on HBO. So go watch it there. It is amazing, and it's so funny that you mentioned that, because the first season of the Gary Sandling show, the Larry Sanders show, ends with Larry leaving the show.
Mm-hmm.
And I wonder whether or not that was him as a writer writing his own out in case he wanted to be done with it, or if he, you know, and then they wind up the season kind of goes on and on. But also, geez, that show not only launching so many careers, you know, Janine Garofalo, Jeremy Piven, Jeffrey Tambor, people that are still very, very, very relevant today. Although, how funny, Jeffrey Tambor is probably the biggest one because he's in the Death of Stalin.
Yeah.
But there's just so many of the fingerprints for Arrested Development. I mean, like, really a genre of comedy that didn't fully bloom for another, like, 10 years after the Larry Sanders Show was done. Like,
I mean, you can make a case that it didn't fully bloom until 20 years after. You know, it's like because you can make a case that Arrested Development was too early and too ahead of its time, which is why it ended up getting canned.
That genre, that time period of like Ricky Gervais and like Extras, but like this is what 2 decades before, maybe a decade before Extras was making a joke about like, hey, let's just have big famous celebrities come on and act like total weirdos, the weirdos that we think they are in our heads. David Duchovny was doing maybe the greatest work of his life in the Larry Sanders Show as like very creepy, very touchy version of himself when like X-Files is like airing. Like he's doing this brilliant comedic kind of turn that again, we wouldn't really be in pop culture's zeitgeist, wouldn't make it through the gatekeepers until a decade and change afterward. He was brilliant.
And I think the documentary does a good job of setting up his accomplishments. Like, I think if you look at the big things he's known for, it might be a shorter list than another hugely successful. He doesn't have the comedy specials that a Chris Rock has, or Jerry Seinfeld, or any of the blue collar guys. But the documentary really says, like, this guy was really important to the creation and like the motivation of so many people around him. That if you don't even know who he is, I think you would get a really good understanding of why he's important.
It's one of those things that you'll be really surprised at how much you did know about Gary Shandling that you didn't know, or how familiar he is when you see him in the context of all this stuff. Like, oh no, that's right, he did do that. Oh, I do know him for that. Yeah, I was aware of that.
Yeah.
And by the way, big ups to HBO for doing the like super not rigid length for documentaries. Because did you guys watch the Defiant ones?
No, but I know you watched it last year.
Try to get dip your toe, Brian. You would love it, probably. I mean, you both would love it, but just the that era of music, I think probably means
this is. Let me write it down. What is it?
The Defiant Ones.
The Defiant Ones is all about Jimmy Iovine and Dr. Dre, and it's like 6 hours. It's long, right? And initially, I didn't even want to watch it because it's like, do I really need a 6 hour vanity documentary about two really, really rich, smart people? It's like, what's the struggle? We're rich. We're smart. We've been really, really smart in music for a very long time. But man, the access that they get, considering they're both alive and they're very much excited about talking about how rich and smart they are, plus all the people in music that they have run across, it is awesome. And it is so well put together. But again, that's something where at max, you would think the maximum for a vanity documentary like that would be a lengthy feature-length film, right? So maybe if you're being extraordinarily indulgent, you're looking at 2.5 hours, maybe 3 hours, which is an eternity for a documentary. And they did 6, and this one's 4. And I think what HBO is realizing is that in a digital era, no, man, if I'm in for 2 hours, stretch it out to 4. Like, let me get all those stories, just mop up every little detail. And I don't care if this story is kind of like the story that you told an hour ago. Give me every little thing that made it different and build for me this longer tale. Like, that's awesome.
And with this one, it's in 2 parts. So like the first one's 2 hours and the other one is 2.5 hours. And I don't know where I would have landed if it was all like in one big thing, but having a specified break in the middle.
Oh, it helped tremendously. Yeah. Especially with the setup of a turn where it's like, you get to a very particular place in his career and then you get there, but you know what comes next? And then I got excited about like, oh, I can't wait till tomorrow when I turn that on and watch the rest. Yeah.
That'll also be my pick, The Zen Diaries of Gary Shandling on HBO.
Right on.
Well, gentlemen, I think that's going to do it. Another week of Weird Things in the Can. Thank you, guys. Thank you, Brian and Justin.
Weird Things in the Can. That's
Right
a different
there, right
podcast.
in the can.
In the can.
That means butt.
It's been weird. Cool. Hey, good show. Okay.
Awesome.
Do you need a break?
Yeah, I'm just gonna do an assessment lap. I don't know who's here and who's not, and who I'm responsible for.
Gotcha.
Just want to point out to everybody that a lot of people might have seen. I was a fish yesterday. I just want to let everybody know that was an April Fool's joke. So if you were had, that's something that you need to deal with yourself. All right? I'm not here to handhold everybody. I was not a fish. I was lying to you because it's socially acceptable on April Fool's Day. The fact that you guys wanted to get in on it is up to you. All right? I'm not I don't want to have to put a warning label on my Twitter account that you're signing. If you read my tweets, I'm not liable for what happened. Because if you think I was a fish, man, I wasn't. I was a joke in your face. I got you. Got your ass. By the way, this is a hat tip to the origins of the holiday. Poisson d'Avril was the medieval French festival of school children slapping paper fish cutouts on their classmates.
No, it's not. What?
Look that shit up, dog. Google Poisson d'Avril.
I'm going to do that.
I don't know my April fish.
Oh, my goodness. It's a thing.
Get that shit in your life.
Wow.
I've got a friend that literally every April Fool's Day, one of us has communicated with the other one and yelled April fish.
In 1508, French poet Eloy de Merval referred to Poisson d'Avril, literally fish of April, possibly the first reference of the celebration in France. Wow. That's the Middle Ages.
Wow.
Wow.
Oh.
In 1539, Flemish poet Edouard de Denay wrote of a nobleman who sent his servants on foolish errands on April 1.
That was just, man, what a bold patriot to just be a dick to your help and then have it be justified by the subsequent centuries. It's like, oh no, he wasn't just being an outrageous piece of garbage. He was celebrating the first April Fools.
In 1686, John Aubrey referred to the celebration as Fool's Holiday, the first British reference. On April 1st, 1698, several people were tricked into going to the Tower of London to, quote, see the lions washed.
Wow, bet you feel like an asshole.
I do.
Rolling up. Hey, there aren't any lions here. April fish.
Man. I still never got an answer to whether Justin Fishy Young preferred flakes or plant life.
Oh, it was just a fish.
Yeah.
A fish.
A fish.
A fish. Which I like to think now whenever I get to my my recitation of nicknames like a rapper on a mixtape, like a fish will be the like fourth one. Those are always my favorite. My favorite whenever a rapper lists like 7 names, it's always the ones at the end are the best. It's just something that somebody literally just called him, or some just like his favorite menu item at Waffle House or something. It's, I don't know. A fish wasn't real. It was me making a joke, and I don't like to eat either, Bryce. So
Okay.
The joke's on you, April fish.
Yeah, you got me, I guess.
Boom.
So, okay, so I'm looking at your timeline now, and I don't know how cognizant of this. Also, new profile pic.
I did, yeah. I changed it when
Is that Ashley?
I wanted a haughty face to look at people while I chided them for not knowing that I wasn't a fish.
It does work well with like, no, you do not. I am not a fish. You do not have those sources.
I enjoyed your April Fool's gag.
Yeah. See, this guy gets it.
See,
Everybody else, they were.
The joke is that you're not a fish, but you were acting like you were.
See, yeah, everybody bought it. Boom, got him. Everybody was like, "What? You're a fish now?" And I'm like, "Haha, no, I was just watching TV."
Well, didn't one of you mention having an After Things topic, or did I imagine that?
You know what?
We could go pop culture. Do you want to talk about Ready Player One? Have we seen? You want to do a little Ready Player One toss around?
Do you want to just do a spoilery talk about Ready Player One?
Yeah, because the only other thing I got is my existential crisis of picking up the phone and calling somebody who's ripping off my act.
Oh,
and I don't know how much we want to talk about that before I do it.
Oh, I got called by the Magic Police. I got called by the Magic Police on Friday.
Is the Magic Police a particular person or?
Well, there were many officers in the Magic Police.
What did you get called on?
Oh, a video on iTricks. I don't even know if I want to name the name, but nobody would really know it unless you were into Magic. But the guy who builds Jim Steinmeier's illusions saw a video on iTricks about a Russian performer doing a Steinmeier illusion. And since he is the builder for that and knows he didn't sell it to him, he got my number through another magician and called me to be like, "You run iTricks?" And I'm like, "Yeah, man." And he's like, "Well, yep. You know, the Magic Police read off the list of,
grievances.
Read you the riot act.
Letter of the law, and I told him I would take it down, and then he spent the next 10 minutes bitching about the Genie forums. Because the Magic Police, their job is never done.
Yeah, then I'd say let's avoid that topic, Brian,
okay.
Especially if you haven't made the call to that person yet.
Okay. Well, I was gonna make it an open-ended discussion about how to handle, or we like deconstructing, like how does this call go? What do you think, and blah blah blah. But then
we can do that. I mean, I've been on both sides of that call with Andrew.
I'm okay with just going on to
just RPO.
Yeah. Let's do RPO.
Okay.
You watched it, right, Justin?
I did. Yeah.
Okay.
I saw it last night. Okay, let me make sure my times are good. They are good. All right, here we go. Hello, folks. Welcome back to the After Things podcast. I'm Bryce Castillo, filling in for Andrew Main yet again. Joined as always with Justin Robert Young.
Hey, it's me.
And Brian Brushwood.
Hey, buddies. How's everybody doing? Anybody see any movie that's been hotly anticipated for the past 4 years?
Oh, my God, did I. So I rewatched Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure.
Speaking of which, I saw that photo released recently. I guess they really are doing another Bill and Ted?
Oh, yeah.
Bill and Ted Face the Music now has a finished script. The Galaxy Quest director.
Oh, my God, that'd be great.
It is, and by the way, oh my God, have Alex Winter and Keanu Reeves aged perfectly for the role. Like, they just look, it's like whenever you do any of these, you take some out of storage.
Like, there's no doubt of who these guys are. Looking at them.
They look so much like Bill and Ted still.
I do love that eventually Dave Grohl and Keanu Reeves will become the same person.
No, but they do look like comedy and drama masks of the same face, right? Like Dave Grohl's the comedy and Keanu Reeves is the drama.
Yeah. Oh yeah, you're right.
See, I think Keanu's growing into like a Sauron sort of. He's the bad wizard.
He is.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I'm all in for all of it, and in my excitement, I got Excellent Adventure and Bogus Journey, and I rewatched Excellent Adventure.
Bogus Journey really holds up, like so much better than anybody acknowledged at the time or since. I think Bogus Journey might be the better of the two.
Bogus Journey might be one of the best science fiction things ever. Science, like sci-fi fantasy, it belongs in the pantheon, and we should protest for it to be there. Excellent Adventure, you see a lot of the hints of what I think is fully the creativity that's kind of fully unleashed in Bogus Journey, but man, is it fun as just a two losers going on the ultimate study session?
So that Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure was the origin for one of my favorite and probably most magically sound magic pieces I've ever written, which is the one where I borrow a $100 bill from the audience, I burn it, and I in what I claim is a time machine, but is actually a toaster oven. But then, and it's just gone. Like I just grab their money and burn it, and it's like, well, don't worry, it's in the future. And then it's like, well, wait a minute. If I have a time machine, then don't worry. When it arrives in the future, I'll send it back into the past. Like that's me exactly ripping off the bit about how they find the dad's keys.
Oh my God, no, that's so good, and probably used to most critical acclaim in Arrival. Spoiler alert. But anyway, all right. So that's not what we're talking about. Although go watch Bill and Ted. Ready Player One.
Yeah. So Ready Player One came out this past Friday.
That's the only way to introduce Ready Player One is unnecessary nostalgia up front.
So all three of us have gone to see Ready Player One.
Yes.
First reactions, gut checks.
Wait, let's just say this is. Do we want to do a little first reaction and then go into spoiler, or do you just want to call spoilers right now?
Let's.
I think first impressions. In fact, I'm going to tweet this out because I'm excited that we're all well informed. And you read the book, right, Bryce?
No, I did not.
Oh,
I actually started reading it and did not like reading it.
Get that opinion out before Ernie.
He asked me if I read
watching
before Ernie Klein shows up in the chat. Hey, buddy, I heard you talking about my movie.
Okay, well, if we're keeping it spoiler free from now on, then we'll start with you, Justin. Generally, how did you feel about Ready Player One?
I was worried about Ready Player One, and be it the salvation of lower expectations, and the fact that Steven Spielberg as a craftsman is somebody that is he, much like David Copperfield, sleepwalking is better than 75% of current practitioners. He is not sleepwalking here. There is some really genuinely super cool visual stuff, and I can't remember the last time that in this era of high spectacle CGI that I've seen visual effects and been like, oh, that's cool, that's really outside the box. Or maybe Doctor Strange was the last time that I was like, oh, rad, they're just going full into this psychedelic weirdo kind of world. So I would say I really liked it. I've got quibbles. There's some quibbles with the story that kind of transferred from the book, and there are some quibbles with some of the acting, but by and large, a very, very, very fun time that actually didn't feel like the 2 hours plus that it was. So
it did move fast. This is a very
almost too fast to the detriment of some of the story, I would say.
Yeah.
This is a very rare circumstance where somebody has completely gutted a story, kept the bones, and the barest bones at that, and resubstituted all the MacGuffins that get us from plot point A to plot point B. And yet, I think it works. I think it stands just fine as a piece of standalone.
I want to get into this with you when we get into spoilers, because I've seen a lot of how much change there was between the book and the movie, and maybe it's just been a while since I've read the book. But man, when Ashley was like, "Oh, how much was different?" I was like, "I don't know, pretty much the same."
Well, and you would not be wrong to say that, insofar as there are these structural beats. There's this point when main character is ahead. There's this point when other main characters ahead. There's this point when bad guys appear to have the upper hand. There's this point when everything seems to be resolved, right? So, and I guess that's why I'm thinking about the bones of everything, because the details truly don't matter. Everything else is just skinning it. And then there's a scene that is all based on nostalgia for a movie from a long time ago, and it doesn't matter what the movie is. It's just a MacGuffin.
Yeah. I think it in that respect, when I was finished, I was actually reminded a lot of a National Treasure type of adventure movie, where you're kind of going from set piece to set piece and finding reasons to discover the new clue and the new hint and the new secret treasure. And I think it was really successful in that. I think it's a script where I think the dialogue and some plot holy elements probably could have been polished out a little bit, but I think it works really well as a full start to end adventure on a treasure hunt, basically. And I think it actually does convey that really well.
The only negatives that I have about my experience are
this is still general.
In general.
All right.
There are moments that you can tell something is supposed to have a stronger nostalgic punch than you feel. Maybe not nostalgic punch, but timing punch. For example, like the credit. This is not a spoiler. Credits open, and then like third silent credit shows up, and it starts playing Van Halen's Jump. It didn't
that didn't feel like there was power in it.
There was no power behind it, right? You're like, it seems like this should be like, oh, I get it. Like this is happening, and yet instead of it just felt like no, don't turn it up that loud. Just, you know what I mean?
I actually felt that with almost all of the licensed music, where I was like, this is good, but I think the context that you're using it is not the most effective with the rest of the sound design. And
later at the very end, the song "We're Not Gonna Take It," just something about the punch when it got started was softer than I had expected it to be. It should be all consuming.
I've got theories.
Okay. Well, so my big negative criticism is not on the intent, not on the writing, not on the setup. The execution, for some reason, and I don't have the words. I'm not skilled enough to know it. A few of them just didn't land with the punch that I thought they should in retrospect.
And that's a sort of weird thing, because I think the original score is good.
Oh yeah,
the original score is really good. It's cinematic and I think it tends to fit with the action pretty well, which I think makes those licensed music moments feel weaker, because they're not, it's not all one big whoosh. That should be a big moment with all those things.
Like,
and they're not quite that.
I think of, and this is a horribly dated reference, but I think about what an eye-popping opening and how good the use of music was in Snatch by Guy Ritchie back in it was like everything was like a punch, and then those songs suddenly mattered to me because of what they meant in the context and visually the way everything popped, starting with Diamond by Clint in the opening sequence, and even in the ad when they're playing Fatboy Slim remixes, I was just like, holy crap, this is amazing. I felt like that is something that I've never associated with Spielbergian storytelling, which I assume defined the aesthetic that landed softer than it should have.
Now, we talked about it a little earlier about the use of references. Without getting into any specifics, how do you guys think all of the various cultural icons being plugged into the movie?
I saw the movie twice, and I am convinced I still have missed half of all the references and winks that exist in there. And I think that's how it should be in that visual medium, because the book, it tells you what it can tell you and encourages you to fill in the rest with your imagination. On the movie, you have to do the reverse. You have to just give so many references that, like a river flowing past you, you're like, oh, I get that one. I get that one. I get that one. And you have to, educate yourself to understand all the ones you missed.
Yeah, I think by and large you did a much better job than I was thinking that it might. It never zoomed in for 5 seconds on a cup of blue milk, and that's what I was afraid that the entire movie was going to be. Yeah. And I'm glad that it wasn't just like visually and hammering in literally every get it, because and now another guy's gonna say hold on to your butts like they did in Jurassic Park. Like it was just, here's the dinosaur, here's the T-Rex. We're going to do in appropriate kind of visual sort of like callbacks to it, but we're not going to a
good example of what I think you're saying, or let me know if this is a good example of what you're saying, is this is not a substantial spoiler, but there's a moment that the main character is recognized by a crowd of people, and he gets grabbed by a big four-armed monster, pulled aside, and said, "Hey, man, you can't just go walking around, whatever." No.
Yeah. Let's call for spoilers.
Okay. Now spoilers. Okay, but as somebody who deeply loved the Mortal Kombat games, I instantly recognized that character, and it made me happy to see it. Also, it does not matter. It would not matter if I recognized the character or not, because it was not substantial to the plot, because it was revealed to be his friend Artemis, right?
Yeah.
I think that's what they did really, really well, and they did it throughout the entire story.
Yeah, I think again, to me, the gold standard of this is Who Framed Roger Rabbit. That was another movie that had so much you've never seen this before kind of IP next to each other, where you can get Mickey Mouse and Roger Rabbit in the same frame. Like that's amazing, but it was never the point. It was always window dressing as, and I would say taking nothing away from Ready Player One, Who Framed Roger Rabbit is a better movie in terms of the plot that they told a really rad kind of Chinatown level detective mystery plot in a way that this is, I think, a bit of a more simpler story of the gang finding treasure and the big bad guys trying to stop them. But all right, so here's my biggest criticism with the movie.
Oh, we're doing negatives first. All right.
Well, let me just say this. I think it was a bold choice that they made in casting to put a literal black hole as their lead character. To have a gaping mass that is sucking oxygen and light and inside of it, instead of casting a human actor, was a very bold choice.
I think there is an unfortunate shortage of characterization all around.
Well, here's all I'll say. If that, just go whenever you're looking at how much does charisma and likability mean for a movie, there are a lot of things that I can now look at in Ready Player One and say, I didn't really feel the connection there, and I didn't really understand the motivation with the aunt, and then he never really mentioned her again. It's not like that was like the triggering instance where now, aside from him being on the run, he feels that now he's more bound to the revolution or anything. I really don't know if I understand the IOI, how that is a thing inside of what company that it owns. Because if that guy was Michael J. Fox, and not to say that he has to be, but let's say closer to Michael J. Fox, I wouldn't really care. I would have loved that, like, hey, this rad, fun guy that whenever he's on screen, I'm having such a blast with, is like, all he would need to do is look in the camera and be like, like, my aunt's dead. And I'd be like, dude, I feel that guy. I'm down to him.
You're saying there was a noted lack of empathic projection that you got from this character.
And I think that in a movie like that, that's where those performances mean so much more, because you're not given a lot of time to have Parzival fall in love with Artemis. You've got a million other things that are swirling around. You've got this plot that, when you really look at it, it's kind of barely hanging there with duct tape and stuff. But if you're having a good time, and when you're having a good time in that movie, oh my God, it's a blast. It's just that is happening when there's visual blender craziness. It's not a lot when he's like, what? Oh man, I'm just kind of a guy. I don't really look ugly or weird enough to feel like I'm rooting for me, but also I'm not handsome and charismatic enough to want him to be my best friend. So I guess I'm just a potato that they stuck eyes on.
Justin, potatoes have eyes.
Yeah, they're kind of king of eyes. They have all the eyes.
They're the only food that has eyes.
That's it. I don't know that you could have. Worst metaphor ever.
Actually.
Speaking of which, on the flip side, who I found fascinating was the IROC character. Because IROC in the book was a bit player that worked for someone or whatever. But I loved the fact that they never revealed that IROC is a shut-in in a basement. We never saw the actual guy, and yet all of him came through in those tiny details. Like, I got like a carpal tunnel thing with my neck if you stand over to the left. Bossy, douchebaggy, but also weak and powerless, but also overcompensating. Yeah. I loved every second of him in there.
The theater that I was watching at, IROC probably got the most consistent laughs.
Yeah.
Of just all those little moments that remind you.
I know that guy.
Well, and it's like, this is not this, even though this is literally an all-encompassing world, it is not super serious to anybody.
Yes.
Right.
Well, but also, like, when it came to the part where it's like, we're going to destroy the world, and he's like, no, I got 10 years of loot. You're not going to do this to me.
Exactly.
Aesthetic. There were a few aesthetic decisions that I thought were extraordinary. The way they depicted money as blood flowing out from wounds, I thought was instantly gettable. And it did a great job to, number one, convey the level of violence happening, but also the real stakes. I mean, these are magical gold coins that people are losing in a made-up universe or whatever, which, unfortunately, reduced the impact. Because one thing I thought the book did pretty well is, if the Oasis is well developed as it appears to be depicted, why would you physically go to school? Of course you wouldn't. You would just hop into the Oasis and go to school and so on. Mm-hmm. That was a little bit absent in the movie, but on balance, I thought aesthetically they did a really, really good job.
Yeah, I my biggest worry going into it was I thought that the motion captured, kind of very obviously CGI'd characters would be kind of shit. I did not expect them to be as good enough that they were just the first settlement outside of the Uncanny Valley, where you knew that they were not real, but you didn't reject them out of hand. And where they wound up going, where Spielberg wound up going with juxtaposing that with photorealistic, like real world kind of things, and understanding that, no, this is an aesthetic decision that people are choosing to have because it evokes these other things that looked like computer generated graphics. I thought was cool and wound up like that succeeding probably was the linchpin of me enjoying the movie. Because if I didn't enjoy the fairly thin plot while they were in the Oasis, or I was rejecting it because of its aesthetics, I think I would have probably really not liked the movie.
I think it set up a really interesting world and a really interesting scenario of what is an all-encompassing, all VR, kind of in and out, very obsequious sort of environment. What does that mean for the real world and the economy and the life inside that? And it made me want, it made me feel like I didn't know enough about either of the spaces, right? Like, okay, so you can zero out your character in the Oasis. You can lose everything, and there's real stakes. But does that mean I have to think about it in contemporary terms? Like, so does that mean it's all PvP servers? Like, are there any free spaces where that?
So you're saying they glossed over some of the, as somebody familiar with gaming online worlds, right. There were entire swaths that were rules were unclear to you
for creating a world where it is so important and people, we watch a man try to commit suicide because his character blows up on this battlefield in the middle of work.
Right.
Are you always at risk of this or not? Because like it's there's just, that's like, it's not even a huge plot hole or anything, but it just made me feel like I don't quite get the world building and I would love more of it, because I think that's what they really tried to put a lot of time into the length of the movie, is between action set pieces and showing off various parts of the world and feeling like I don't quite get all of this.
This is one of the problems is already, I mean, it was a pretty fast 2.5 hours long, but it's like those downbeats, that world building that you're craving. Mm-hmm. I don't know what they would have taken out to give it to us, or whether or not that would have, for all we know, those were in there and got cut for time.
It's a very challenging thing to adapt, because you have 3 gates, and unless you're going to change it to something less, right, or change where that structure is, which I think works. Like, there's a reason why 3 gates is aesthetically pleasing. It gives you 3 different set pieces that you can put in the 3 different acts. Like, it just that makes sense. Then you have the revolution thing, so you have to set up this world that is ripe for revolution and demonstrate the power of the baddies, and do whatever love story in there, which it true to the kind of movies that it wants to pay homage to, is a little threadbare. It's a little boy meets girl, girl looks at boy, now they're in love forever. But still, all right, here, Brian, what are, when you're like, all right, it kind of gutted the story and reassembled it, what is gone from the book?
Well, the entire first key sequence has been completely destroyed, like gutted. Like they, in the book originally, it was him at school. Nobody had made any progress in any way towards apparently, like, finding the egg was a fad that came and went, and not too many people are trying to do it these days. And here he is daydreaming at school, and he has an epiphany that opens up the first challenge, which is him playing Joust against the character on the cover of the Dungeons and Dragons book. All of that 100% gone. Instead, they're like, it's a race. The competition's still white hot, and everybody's playing it. And also he's established, because that was something that the book, and again, none of this matters. It doesn't matter exactly how close to the book or whatever, but it is interesting how much they changed. In the book, he's got no resources, and it's only because he's the first one to figure out the first clue that he's able to license his likeness and do product placement spots and earn money, that he can start getting the decent upgrades to make him a credible player in the game. So a bit of the hero's journey is already cut out, because we never see him as Luke Skywalker, moisture farmer. We only see him halfway through his Jedi training, and from there on. Same thing with the second key, is all totally different. This in the second key, it was that's when we encountered the movie War Games, and the game was to play through the entire movie by demonstrating you knew every line and act everything.
Yeah, no, I do.
Instead, this is like a group decision of like, let's go play in Shining World, and then they did. And that's fine. Again, structurally, it didn't matter. And yet the whole second key bears no resemblance to what was originally depicted in the book. And yet it was correct insofar as, at the end of the second key, Artemis was ahead of Parzival, because she was the one that solved that before he could get there. And then, similarly, the third one's probably the closest, and that it has to do with the Atari 2600. And then also, even there was no curator, there was no visual way to see Halliday's life or whatever. That was all manufactured for it, which I thought was a fine way to get us where we needed to be in and I thought they did a good job of making it a significant moment, that the curator kept insisting you take the coin without overplaying it, so that you knew there was like a talisman MacGuffin in the background. So I thought that was fine.
Yeah, well, I mean, to me, the Shining sequence is the reason to go see the movie. It is what made the movie you got it. Like, the fact that this is Steven Spielberg, turning obviously a director that he has tremendous reverence for, as not only another great director, but also somebody that he wanted to do AI with and everything, that he cares so much about the legacy of Kubrick, that he's like, all right, but now we're going to use it for this kind of like whackety schmackety haunted mansion thing,
which strangely played fun. Also very weird to watch that great. With my children. Like, my children watch it, like that moment that you see the bathroom in room 2 whatever, and you see the curtain pull back. I'm just like, oh dear, and I'm like, these kids don't know what's coming.
Yeah. No, it was great. I thought that to me was the moment that I was like, all right, I'm in. I'm into Ready Player One. This is doing stuff that I had not expected to succeed on this level. But yeah, I don't know. The one thing I think was a good decision script wise was to move good and bad. One of my favorite parts about the book was the idea of the one theme that I thought carried the most, that they spend a lot more time on, is who's behind the keyboard. And you're making real friendships, you're making real connections, but how much should this affect you? If you found out that the love of your life wasn't the gender that you thought they were, would you at what point in a relationship, even in a digital relationship, do you ask? When is it polite? When does it cross the threshold of trust to not say what it matters? Or does it matter? Do you make a conscious decision to not care? And that's something that is played a lot more throughout the book with the your mileage may vary revelation that Artemis is a pretty girl with a Mikhail Gorbachev thing on her head, right?
Yeah.
Like, and that to me in the book was like, oh, okay, like that's
the potentially relationship stopping MacGuffin that you put in there.
Connect you body and soul. You're a very pretty young. You've not lied to me. Nothing has changed except this. Like, it's fine, man. You'll wear Phantom of the Opera mask. We're in. So I'm glad that they moved that up and that now that was a second act revelation because it felt more appropriate in the story as a second act revelation than it did in the book as a third act revelation. Not for any other reason than I felt more invested in it as a third act and it felt disappointing, where in the second act it's like, oh, okay. And it also sets up the fact that apparently they all live in Columbus.
Well, yeah, there is that aspect. But again, they at least inoculated against that by saying Columbus was the fastest growing city in the world. And they intimated that the stacks weren't stacked because the world was garbage and everything sucked. The stacks were stacked because everybody was going to Columbus. Maybe that's where the Wi-Fi was the best. Speaking of Wi-Fi, moving to the high five. That's a transition.
I missed that term being coined.
They was not there. They just suddenly called themselves that.
The high five.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, also in the book, most of them are dead.
Like, really?
They don't survive the book.
I guess it's player death is like the big stakes that the movie tries to set.
Correct.
It's like,
correct.
You'll be fine. Maybe you had the force feedback bodysuit, but you're not going to actually die.
Right.
Which kind of is set to contextualize the IOI guy
and
failing to shoot these kids at any point.
I think that is I think that was a good movie making decision, because otherwise when you introduce, like, you can't hold in your mind these kid level stakes of like in-game money being lost and hold it up against, no, I just watched someone straight up get murdered. You can't go back to caring about this video game that everyone lives in.
Right.
So I think that was smart.
I mean, it does. They kill that ant.
Yeah.
And they kill everybody else, and then we're right back to my coins.
But they don't care. But they don't kill any of the characters that we are invested in yet.
Sure.
Yeah.
Now that you might make the argument that the fact that we don't care about the aunt and the uncle is kind of a problem story wise. That is just kind of like the biggest problem with that is that he now has to sleep in his game room, I guess.
Right.
So okay. So this is not like a bigger. This is me asking because I did not immediately understand if the guy that was staying with the aunt was the aunt's boyfriend or Wade's brother or like stepbrother.
Oh no! I totally read that as
boyfriend. Right?
Yeah, it's boyfriend.
That didn't immediately track for me.
It totally read to me like he lost his parents. He stays with his aunt. His aunt makes poor dating decisions, and here we are.
I see.
Here's my only thing that kind of lingered through the book. And is on display here in the movie. I just have a hard time wrapping my head around the main dude who creates everything not being like a really bad guy. Like he runs off his best friend, he covets his wife, and then is like, no, to get all my stuff, like you have to like go through this like very fucked up like exploration of like all of my failings, and it's like, in what world is that not the supervillain?
Well, and especially because and maybe this was the smart move on the movie's part, because you're right. In the book, I think he's portrayed with a little more depth, and there are people who love him or hate him. He certainly was, more of a Steve Jobs, like, you see what you want to see when you look at him type thing. Whereas in the movie, like, we don't have time. We're not going to think about it. Everybody loves him. Shut up. Everybody loves him.
Friend.
Like, everybody, even the guy whose wife he coveted. Everybody loves him.
The best friend of all time. You might call somebody that you know and love your best friend, but no. They are not the best friend. Simon Pegg is the best friend, because I will tell any of you that if you ever ruin my professional career and then make a gigantic piece of art about coveting my wife, we're no longer friends.
Much less do I work undercover doing the most menial, tedious job in all of the Oasis
for years.
Palace for you, like, no.
But I mean, that's a testament to how the movie worked. The mere fact that I was like, yeah, sure, all right, I guess, yeah.
Oh, they also just jam him in, and like, as you're walking out, they're like, and Simon Pegg, he was the guy anyway, like, we're not gonna take it. It really doesn't give you a lot of time to think about the fact that it's like, wait, what? Wait, why? Anyway, move on. We're clearing the theater for the next showing.
Which again, I think is a testament to
it's built. It is certainly built well. I mean, that was the thing with the book that I ultimately kind of was left feeling a little cold. Is like I kept expecting the story to reveal that this is kind of a dark thing by the creator, and that he is kind of the bad guy, and just because you have let your kind of metastasized shyness turn into negative feelings or this little like kind of cancer, that's not something that we should laugh off and be like, haha, even the best. It's like, no, if there's going to be redemption for this character, it needs to be acknowledged that like that's really screwed up. Like, you did some really like weird things, and we can all understand where they come from, being shy nerds who like shy nerd things, but still,
you created a sticky situation.
You're the bad guy. You're the baddie. You created a weird, like a super self-absorbed like thing where it's like, no, learn everything about me, and then will you have my treasures.
Also, imagine the cottage industries that have died from this, the completion of this story. All these people who are like, their life's work is learning about everything that this dude likes.
We're going to shut down 30% of the GDP of the globe by turning it off Tuesdays and Thursdays, because that's what I want to make out.
I want to bone.
That is a weird. Is that in the book, or is that just the movie?
No, that's definitely not. Like, it would be economy crushing in the book.
Yeah, well, it's also like, really, that's the moral of our story, of like burying our getting dick deep in nostalgia for an hour.
I'll tell you what this feels like to me.
Like, no, the moral here is get away from the computer, you nerds.
Well,
what the fuck?
This feels to me like some test audiences had some ladies over 50. And they're like, okay, we gotta figure out some way to make everyone feel good. Yeah, no, enjoy your games, but don't let it rule your lives. There you go. Are you guys happy?
I feel like one of those ladies over 50 is named Steven Spielberg.
Maybe.
Justin, you earlier mentioned that you had a theory about the licensed music.
I just think that we don't care about the characters, and the characters don't necessarily care about each other so much. And so, the difference between some of the licensed music hits in this and the fact that they play Immigrant Song like 4 times in Thor Ragnarok is that we care about Thor, we care about Hulk, we care about the little journey from Loki. And so when the goofball Thor realizes that without his hammer, he can still be the god of thunder, and it comes in on this shot, and Immigrant Song spools up again, having already heard it earlier, you're like, yeah, because you have kind of followed along. And now the culmination, that licensed music to me is so often, it's a lighter, and it can either just be a lighter and you're like, oh cool, you have a lighter, or it can be thrown on a heap of gas soaked rags and you're like, oh my God, what an amazing conflagration. And the gas-soaked rags are the story. And I don't think that we really get it. Like, I don't really think that by the end of it, it's like, I'm not happier that the High Five get to run the Oasis. I'm not happier that we realize that Simon Pegg is the Robo Butler. Like, it just kind of there, and it's fine. And it was a good movie, and I liked watching it. But there's never any moment where it's like, yes, they did. They're about to do the thing, and then they played the song, and I remember this song, and look, I'm excited for them to get a thing. It was just kind of like, and now it's like someone's playing Xbox, and they just have the '80s playlist, like, you know, randomly playing music over the game audio.
Yeah.
Was it the first race? Maybe there was one really extended action sequence that I was really surprised that there was no music or score at all. I can't remember if that was the first.
Probably the first race. I don't think there was much.
And it actually, I think that worked really well. Like it was something where in the middle I noticed like, oh, there's not like any like extra layer on top of this. But I think that's a testament to just the sound effects design, but also the huge visual effects work and the CG of like creating this labyrinth of a street race.
Yeah. Well, worthy of seeing. Everybody should go see it. I think you'll really enjoy it.
Oh, sure.
No, look, it's good summer fare. You know, it is a fun time at the movie.
Quick question.
Okay.
Can't believe I didn't put this together until yesterday.
Player 1 is Wade.
No. But the release date being 3 days before Easter, and this being a movie about an Easter egg hunt. How intentional is there somebody who's just like, no, it's gonna hit because Easter eggs will be on everyone's mind. Are we calling it total coincidence? Are we talking happy coincidence, or is somebody in corporate America certain that this was going to be an important factor to solidifying its fan base?
Well, I think as the summer release schedule encroaches more and more into spring, the idea of it being a 3-day weekend probably matters more than the reason why there's a 3-day weekend. So the fact that a lot of people have off Good Friday and there still are people out for spring break and stuff like that is probably just as much of a reason than anything else, I would guess.
Okay. This reminded me of one very specific gripe I got about the story.
Yeah.
You got about 80 different people working for IOI on that third challenge.
Yeah.
And they've got the entirety of the Atari thing. And so they do the one whichever like lab worker has got the what about Adventure? It's the first game that has an Easter egg.
Which I don't think they said. I think they just said, now let's do Adventure. Or he liked it.
I don't there's a solid point where they say Adventure has an Easter egg. Like I remember them over explaining.
I almost Brian, you saw it twice, so you would probably be able to pull rank on me. But I remember it like Bryce remembers it, where that's the reason why they initially choose Adventure, because they still control the console, and they're like.
No. I the way I remember it, and I've seen it twice, but even having seen it twice doesn't mean that my memory is accurate. But the way I remember it is like it was his favorite movie for this or game for this reason, or he liked it. Like it was just in the pantheon of credible contenders because he liked it a lot or said he liked it or something.
Well, and the reason she has the epiphany is because her reason is that it's got the Easter egg in it. Because they make a whole point of like the developer wanted to put his name in it, in any case, it was weird that was not one of the first games that they picked, and it's super weird that they didn't get that would be the second thing they should do in the game when beating the game doesn't work.
Well, they
didn't get a chance. They didn't get a chance.
Yeah,
the guy beat it, and then everyone got killed.
Sure.
And so in theory, that would have been the next thing they would have tried.
Also, like, because then her supervisor's like, well, that didn't work, and he starts scratching it off. And it's like, tried the Easter egg. That's the thing that.
Well, no, I think that's also the researchers were weird because like we're kind of rooting for them and they're kind of rooting for us, but they're the bad guys.
Well, but that makes sense. I see that. I mean, I'm sure there were well-intentioned civil engineers working for the Third Reich. You know, it's just like
I guess it's not weird to me that they exist. It's weird to me that like they go, if you were to do a World War II movie, it would be kind of weird if randomly you went back to all the nice people in the Nazi party, right?
Who are cheering. They're having the loudest cheer moment.
Yeah, exactly. Just
but again, I think that's a testament.
The totally benign copy makers of the Nazi party are like, now we get to photocopy that we quit. Hooray!
I think that's a testament to kind of the low stakes of the movie, which keeps it in that cheery popcorn fare.
And the other thing is
nobody's dying except for the people who died. But you know, it's everything is coins.
I actually get that because this is right after they player killed literally everybody else in. I don't know if it's supposed to be everybody on that world or everybody
said
in
on the planet.
game.
Yeah.
But all of the people who would have that big cheer rally moment were dead in the Oasis, and
well, I'm sure there were ghosts able to watch the public feeds of stuff at that point. It's sort of like you get killed in PUBG and you get to watch whoever's next. Although that's not true in PUBG. It kicks you off. Fortnite.
I'm agreeing with you.
Yeah.
One last thing. I was really suspicious that the Iron Giant was a big part of the promotional material for Ready Player One. I was really worried because it's like Iron Giant was kind of an anti-war sort of message. Didn't really like the violence, whole stuff. And I actually felt okay about it in how they set it up of like, oh no, H is controlling it. It's like it was H controlling it, right? It was like it was her avatar in that moment. It wasn't like a sentient Iron Giant, which is what I was concerned
interesting.
about.
No, see, I think Justin and I, having read the book, never for one second thought it was otherwise. Although, man, Gundam, maybe fourth place giant robot, I would have liked in that.
My favorite reference, though, seeing the Gundam was like, oh, hey, they actually like went there.
Voltron would have been better
for you, Dad.
Dad.
Yeah, I don't know. I thought it was. I thought it played fine. I mean, I would have gotten more of a reaction out of Voltron if they had done. But I enjoyed how much they, and this is Spielberg's kind of Spielbergian touch, that like each time a reference was there, it visually kind of looked like the camera moved like the reference, right? It wasn't just like the reference sort of dropping into a still frame. It like when Gundam showed up, there was like the little like tight the little like zoom in and stuff like that,
freeze frame action pose and
that because I noticed a lot of reference stuff, but that was the one I was like felt surprised by of like, oh, okay, so like they're kind of really trying to
they made some
make
good
a
deep
lot of
cuts
reach.
and I'm betting all in the background there's a whole bunch more of them that we missed.
Oh yeah, no, totally. So go see it because we own it in the movie trap.
Yeah.
And we're at the end of the spoiler discussion on Ready Player One.
Yeah.
Any other last thoughts on Ready Player One, guys?
No. Super happy for my buddy Ernie Klein. Congratulations.
Yeah, man. No, that's huge. Biggest Spielberg opening in like 10 years.
In like a decade, yeah.
Wow.
That's big shout out to everybody involved in that. Yeah. Hey, Brockmire season 1. That's my other pick.
Steven Pinker's Enlightenment Now. Go read it. Despite Andrew having megrims about it, I think it's a fine successor to Better Angels of Our Nature.
Arms. There's a game on the Switch called Arms. If you like the Wii Sports boxing thing, it's boxing, but like with a lot of weird motion control elements. And it seems weird, but I think the motion controls are both the best way to play that game and actually really engaging. So
right on.
With all that, thank you everybody. It's been After.
Goddamn right.
What was your pick again, Brian? I didn't.
Enlightenment Now. We've talked about it on Weird Things, but it's the new Pinker book.
Just double checking. I didn't get a chance to get it. Cool. Well, hey, thank you everyone for coming to the stream, coming to the show. We're gonna have Cord Killers in about 2 hours. What do you got, Justin? You got wrestling today?
Jack poop, because Willie had to bail on wrestling. So I'm not doing nothing until.
You guys hear that? Willie no longer likes wrestling,
and Justin is
He's
nutting.
out.
Yeah, I'm out.
Yeah.
He hates it. So I'm now I've made it my mission to kill him.
Seems legit.
Okay, well.
Hell, I can still be the hero if I invent the Oasis.
Alrighty, we'll see you guys in a little while for Cord Killers. Bye.